Hello, Ryan here, and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all of the news from the week just past. Be sure to subscribe if you like what you see, and let's get on with it. This week, Inside Star Citizen returns with a new sprint report updating us on physical inventories, gas cloud tech, the Constellation Taurus and Merlin docking, plus Star Citizen Live answers our questions regarding Alpha 3.10. So before we begin, just a quick update regarding Alpha 3.10. It is still in Wave 1 and currently on patch 3.10p. They have finally resolved the Area 18 spline issue, which I personally think was a blocker. There are many more known issues. Some of them are pretty serious, but nothing as serious as the previous one, so let's hope Wave 2 is close and coming next week. So Inside Star Citizen returned this week after their 3-week hiatus. First up was a look at the many brands found within the universe. Currently, the narrative team are managing around 250 brands within the Star Citizen lore, and these consist of everything like consumer goods, government agencies, service providers, and so on. Brands within the game, they say, help players to distinguish the difference between form and function of an item. It creates colour and context for a location and can help inform the history of the verse. During this segment, we got to see an early concept for an Argo ship, but do bear in mind that this ship was actually abandoned, so it won't be released, but they did say that regardless of its actual sort of disc shape, it did help to work out a lot of the shape language for the Argo SRV and the Mole. Branding also helped to determine item characteristics, and the example they gave were FPS weapons. This quarter, they're going to go through and place all of their FPS weapon manufacturers into a balanced triangle. Now this is a common practice in product design. Basically, for each item that is created, manufacturers have a finite amount of time, amount of money, and so on. So in the real world, the triangle sort of determines whether you want to make something quickly, make it good, or make it on the cheap. For the FPS weapons, they are using this triangle, but the 3 points are power, so damage per shot, speed, which can mean rate of fire, and range, and how steady at range each weapon is. So every FPS weapon will go through this process and fall somewhere within the triangle, and this will just help establish consistency for each manufacturer. Something very interesting that they spoke about was how branding doesn't only apply to products, but it can also apply to people or groups. Now the Ninetales are a known pirate group within the verse, probably the biggest protagonist that we currently have in the PU, and if you see a symbol from the Ninetales on a ship, on a piece of armour, or maybe on a wall somewhere, then you will know who they are, and that it could be dangerous to proceed depending on your reputation with that group. Now I actually really enjoyed this segment looking at the brands a lot more than I thought I would. Seeing how deep they are going with the branding really establishes the verse with a deeper, more colourful history and also solidifying the lore. It's pretty fascinating how already each player has a love, hate and somewhere in between feeling towards all of the ship manufacturers, which is pretty incredible to say that these are all in a game world, not in real life. Anyway, after this segment was a sprint report. They showed us 4 new brand logos which were reviewed for upcoming brands. We have Spearfish, who make EMPs. We have Rock Heavy Metals, which is a supplier to the UEE for metals and alloys, mostly for the military and the advocacy. There's Galavan Publishing, which is a Terran-based publisher, the people who publish the Whiteley's Guide for Vehicles, and Navy Surplus, which offers BDUs, jackets, pants and more that have been retired from active service. Love the sound of that one. Org uniforms are incoming. So improvements were also made to the building blocks UI tech. This recent work includes adding drop-down and scrollable menus to the array of tools. All of the text on screen is a bit of nonsense, so do bear that in mind, but it does give them a little bit more scope when creating UI throughout the verse. Work continues on the layout, transitions and drag reordering functionality, which will be the basis for players to manage their physical inventories when that comes online, they said, later this year, which hopefully will stick to that. Now, there have been discussions about other systems that this tech could be used for. They didn't say what, it was left to us to guess. I'm thinking maybe cargo manifests, maybe on your ship or for the cargo decks. Do let me know what you think though. Work also continues on the gas cloud tech, having tests for spacescapes around space stations that sit along Lagrange points throughout Stanton. These gas clouds will add more gameplay opportunities, and they are looking into ways to expand this tech throughout Stanton. It is looking phenomenal. I cannot wait to get these gas clouds in-game. It is going to make the game just look so much better when flying through space. We also got to see progress on the cargo decks. These are set for 3.11. They are looking very good. Plus, we got to see the Guild Master in his office. Obviously, just a placeholder for now. But I would like to see maybe a cargo guild app come with the cargo decks for 3.11. So let's hope so. Finally, we got to see the Constellation Taurus in a very early update to expand its cargo bay. So that is coming along. Nice to see that they're actually progressing on that. And something really exciting was the early prototyping for the Merlin docking. Now, they said it's early days, but it is coming along very well. Hopefully, they can get docking in this year, but not just for the Merlin, for ship-to-ship docking and for ship-to-station docking. That would be incredible. Anyway, that was the return of Inside Star Citizen. Let me know your thoughts. I definitely enjoyed this episode. So, Star Citizen Live this week was with Todd Pappy and John Crew, and they were answering all of our questions regarding 3.10. The first question is, why is flying in atmosphere so slow compared to real aircraft? Now, they say the ships fly in atmosphere and in space, so they are not the same as real aircraft. These spaceships are actually much larger and about 4 to 5 times heavier than a fighter jet, so they are not designed to be super quick in atmosphere. They will, however, make sure that their speeds do make sense to the game so they can adjust them as time goes on. Also, all the planets and moons have varying atmosphere, which also varies depending on your altitude, like in real life. So if you're at sea level, it will be slower than compared to higher up in atmosphere. Now, originally, I personally felt that the ships are too slow, and I do kind of still feel like they could be tweaked a little more to go a bit faster, or maybe it's not about how fast they're going now, maybe it's more about giving the impression of speed using visual effects and sound and so forth. But listening to John Crew explain some of these factors that are affecting flight, I actually see their point now, and I do think that based on weight especially and size, that these are spaceships and not just real aircraft, that I'm kind of okay to accept that they will be a bit slower. If something doesn't feel right though, they will adjust it and amend it as they go, and with this being the first iteration of this new flight model, I'm sure there'll be a lot of changes in the future. Now, next question is, what are these delivery mission changes? They seem like they offer a very low reward. If you don't know, you can have a delivery mission where you can pick up 3 boxes from one location and deliver them to 3 separate locations, or pick up 3 different boxes from 3 different locations and deliver them all to one, and you get paid 4,000 UEC, or Alpha UEC. Now, they said that they are changing the way missions work and making sure that they are more modular to allow them to scale better. So using things like different locations. These new ones are all local deliveries, so you do not need to leave the planetary location. Occasionally you might need to go to one of the moons of, say, Microtech if you are taking the mission on at Microtech, but you don't need to jump from one planet to the next. They're basically gauging how long it'll take a player to complete a mission, as well as what they would expect a player to earn on average in 1 hour playtime, and then they will balance it from there. They are, again, constantly tuning and adjusting payouts throughout the PTU as well, and there will always be changes as the economy grows. Nothing is final yet, and they will need to balance a lot more before completion. And this will apply to not only the payouts of the missions, but the cost of ships, the cost of weapons, the cost of repair, the cost of food. Everything needs to be balanced. And again, once we get this dynamic economy in, hopefully that will allow them to gauge a much more accurate cost throughout the board. Anyway, someone asked about the landing splines and what's happening here. They seem a bit glitchy. Now, they have been addressing many aspects of the splines from patch to patch. They said they've changed the sizes to the splines and made them more visible as well. Landing icons for the pad do not display straight away. They are now visible at the start point of the spline rather than directly at the pad. So you don't go straight to the pad, forgetting that there's a spline there. They're kind of making them more like breadcrumbs than a direct indicator. So it leads you to the entrance of the spline and then it will take you through that. It's going to be the same with taking off. There is an icon as to where to start the spline so that you don't just go off in the wrong direction like I always do. But I did test it last night, and flying down to ArtCorp, the spline popped up nice and visible, but not glaringly in your face, and it seemed to be pretty smooth. It was a lot bigger, it was a lot easier to get in, but bearing in mind I was flying a small ship, so how it works with a larger ship, I've not tried yet. Next question is, with the new Moby Glass colours, will we be able to change the text colours of our Moby Glass as well? Now they say yes, they can do that, and they are looking into ways to do different mobiGlas styling options. They're still going through the process of switching the whole mobiGlas over to this new building blocks UI tech, and once they've done that, they will then revamp the overall visuals of the mobiGlas. At this point, they will actually introduce the ability to switch out for different styles, so changing fonts being one of those options. Currently, they are focused on updating the star map, apparently, to the new building blocks, which I am very happy to hear. The star map can be very difficult to use and glitchy, so this should resolve a lot of, if not all of, the current annoying usability issues with the star map. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing this level of customization, having different designs of some sort, not just colour schemes. Not to mention, they did speak about the Explorer mobiGlas a long while ago, which I think was unlocked as a backer reward, so it'll be different with more content in it for Explorers. It'll be nice to see them finally come to fruition. Anyway, next question. Large ships are difficult to fly in atmosphere. Is this intended? Now, they are looking into how the wind interacts with ships, which is causing some very odd behaviour. Plus, they did say the big ships are intentionally slower and harder to manoeuvre in atmosphere in 3.10. Now, this is part of the design. Eventually, you will be able to dock at a space station and then take a shuttle down to the planet, which will be a way to encourage players to decide whether they want to risk the fuel usage and the difficulty of handling their ships, or just docking if they don't need to land. The larger ships are getting to the point at which they want them to handle like, so don't expect them to change too much. Next question, how are prisons coming along and have they been adjusted in 3.10? Now, they have adjusted some of the laws in 3.10, so the punishments vary a lot more, but currently they are happy with the gameplay that prisons introduce, so creating repercussions for people's actions. They have been fixing bugs like spawning in prison and out of prison and loadouts. There are still a lot of bugs that they need to fix, but overall it is in the right place and they will just keep expanding from there. Next question is to do with targeting updates. So they have taken all of the feedback from Ivocati and the early Wave 1 testing into consideration, and they have brought in some more changes, like giving the option to lock targets out of view, which is a big difference. Instead of it always being within your vision, it is now within your radius. They have been changing this a lot, and they will trial new methods as they go. This is the benefit of a PTU and the different waves, is that they can test different ways and methods, which could be annoying for people if they play it, but if that's the case, do not play the PTU. And I think with the most recent build, which I haven't brought the patch notes video out yet, they have changed it again, and there is a lot more controls to learn. But I haven't had a go myself. Next question, will we have the ability to cancel a landing request? That's a good question. Now, cancelling requests is something that CIG would like to put in, also making the ATC request a more direct action and cleaning up the process of it as well. They do want to bring in additional key bindings to help when in ships, and people don't want to use the MFDs to request landing, especially now in 3.10, because if you look away from the screen, you could actually fall to your death. So I'm happy that they are looking into this, and I would love a one-bound key request landing button, which I think they said that they are planning to bring. Next question is basically, why is the patch so late? So they did explain that it's not the work from home issue. After the first month, everybody was in the groove. It is more to do with these targeting and restricted zones. These are major features that need more iteration than normal, and they really want to get targeting right, and so they're giving more time to do this. Apparently every day Chris Roberts has been sending notes asking for updates on the targeting system, and targeting is one of the most important things to Chris to get sorted. So I'm very happy to hear that CR is heavily involved and determined to get features correct rather than just out the door. I do prefer this. I'd rather things are as solid as they can be, at this point especially, rather than just chucking them out in a complete mess. But that is what the PTU is for, so hopefully we can get the targeting established with 3.10, and then from there on it is just building on that rather than changing it up again. Next question, the Vanguard handling is poor. Is this intentional? And they said that actually it was too harshly nerfed, so they have given it a buff. Rotations in space apparently were too sloppy, so that's been changed. Is there work left to be done on the VTOL flight? Now they say there's a lot that they want to tweak. It won't change in 3.10 for now though. Eventually they do want this helicopter method of tilting forwards and then moving forwards. But I will say that they have mentioned in the past that next up for atmospheric flight is the variation between thrusters, so maneuvering thrusters and VTOL thrusters having more accurate behaviours. Hopefully that comes with 311, if not before. It doesn't sound like it's come in before, but that is the next step, they said when they were talking about the flight model a little while ago. What are the high-speed combat changes was the next question. Now this is sort of a twofold feature for 3.10, and one of these features is the increase in missile lock time while you are going above SEM, and it scales the faster you are above SEM. So if you're like 1 meter a second above SEM, you won't really notice, but if you go higher and faster, then it will take a lot longer. The other feature is auto gimbal slew rate, so the time it takes to get your gimbals on point will take a lot longer as well the faster you're going. They want to disincentivize combat at high speed, and they want to encourage this slower speed combat rather than just constant pixel hunting. They did try other methods like weapon spread increase, which they said felt artificial. They tried reducing the shield face strength, which they said worked, but they didn't have the UI to explain it to the player, and it was just confusing. I'm not sure how I feel about my shield's face reducing in strength the faster I go. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I don't know. But 311 or later will have more, but they want to try other options as well. Apparently now flares do work in 3.10. Chaff, they say, is having a temporary fix for 310, but they will address any issues later on. Next question is, rolling while using fixed weapons are not great. How come? Now they said that pips are not 100% accurate due to the networking issues. This is why they have brought in the gimbal and fixed assist. Getting closer to your target is pretty much a workaround for ensuring that you get more constant hits. But it's one of these issues that the server issues we are having are in the works and will hopefully improve maybe with 3.11 when we get the server to client networking rework, which allows the server to communicate back to the client. At the moment we have the client to server rework done, so this should really help with Dead Reckoning and rubber banding. Slated for 3.11, so let's hope that that is still the case. Next question is, what are the knock-on effects of slowing down ships when it comes to racing? Now they said this is very tricky to get it right. They want racers to be fast, but they don't want them to be better fighter than a dedicated dogfighter, just purely based on their speeds. So they are looking into ways to make them better at racing without just increasing the speeds, like giving them better handling perhaps, or maybe being able to sustain more Gs in a turn. Next question, how much future-proofing for future tech like server meshing and iCache do you do? Now they always plan for the upcoming tech, like adjusting the code to be ready for server meshing. They have done that already. It took about a week. It didn't take very long at all. In many cases though, they do just live with the pain of something until the tech comes online, making sure that when they build these systems that they do work fine when they flip the switch to the new tech. I personally think a lot of features and mechanics are actually held up by this back-end tech, like salvaging, engineering, physical inventories. They all need certain pieces of core tech before they can be implemented. So hopefully this year they can get the majority of this back-end core tech done, and then we can unlock features much quicker. Next question, are you planning additional changes to the targeting pips before rolling out? Maybe the format, the look, the visuals of it. Now the visual styling they say is as it should be, but they will be adding the ability to have drop shadows on the HUD, on all HUD elements later. The flight HUD in 3.10 does adjust to what's on screen, so if you're looking at a bright planet, it will darken it for you. If you're looking at a dark place, it'll lighten it up, but it's not everything yet, just the flight HUD, so they will address that later on. Next question is to do with bartenders and their responsiveness. When you request a drink, it takes them almost minutes to react. Now they say over the past week they have actually fixed around 20 bugs just in the bartender alone and are working to make sure it is as smooth as possible. Talking of bartenders, someone asked if we could get drunk in the game. Now they say not until the actor status 2.0 comes in, which will bring things like radiation poisoning, getting drunk. There's no dates for these, but the actor status version 3 they say will bring future things like diseases and viruses. Next question. How are planet temperatures calculated? Now this is based on the proximity to the sun. That's the biggest factor. The temperatures do change throughout the day-night cycle. Obviously in the dark they get colder, and in the daytime when the sun is out it gets warmer. But temperature doesn't affect ships right now, but they will. So for example, if you leave your ship in a very cold environment for a little while and then come back, when you get back to it, it'll be so cold that you'll need to allow your ship to warm up. Obviously, in hot locations, items will overheat much quicker, and the heat will come into the ship if you open the door as well, so your life support may be working a bit harder. Very impressed by that, and I look forward to this so much, but I reckon there's a few people that don't. Second to last question, will we get a wipe with 3.10? Very good question, but unfortunately, they say, or Todd Pappy said, it is still unknown at this point. They will have to wait and see closer to release whether they will do a wipe or not. And then finally, the M50 looked like it had square engines, but it is not the case with its release. What's going on here? And they said that they built both, but Chris Roberts decided on one of them. But in the future, they will allow us to swap out thruster sets, and they will definitely have both of these options available. I really am excited to get not just these physical components, but the ability to swap out your thrusters and get better thrusters, more efficient thrusters, that sort of stuff. Really adding more to that customization. Anyway, that was Star Citizen Live. Not actually a great deal to be learnt, but it's interesting to see why the patch is delayed and what they are doing to try and improve things like targeting and combat, and making it as good as it can be so that they can build on that rather than constantly change it over and over again. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. Let's move on. So also this week, we had a new tracker post speaking to Paul LaSalle, one of the 5 remaining Imperator candidates, and about their plans for the UEE if they were to win. The roadmap has a new 3.12 column addition. I have covered all the roadmap changes in a separate video, which I have linked in the description below. And finally, there was a new slideshow of all of the recipes from the Intergalactic Cook-Off of 2950. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Also, I am able to do this thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. If you appreciate what I do and would like to help make it even better from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are provided below.